art is a spiritual technology.
Wherever I go, I can be like, okay, this is north, this is south because of Detroit.
All these cultures that are inside the city are what I like to put on a plate.
Stories and fantasies that last always have truth to them.
Detroit is the Black story.
This is Container on the Metro, a series uplifting the voices of Detroit creatives across food, art, music, and fashion. I'm Tia Graham. In this episode, we say what up, though, to Mr. Donald Calloway.
Donald Calloway, mixed media artist.
Donald has worked in the city of Detroit as an artist for over 30 years and continues to find new ways to express his artistry. His works range from figures made of found and repurposed woods and metals to portrait paintings and abstract sculptures. He is a 2025 Kresge Artist Fellow and a College for Creative Studies alum. He has had multiple solo and group exhibitions throughout his career, including showings at Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History, the National Conference of Artists Gallery, and Detroit Institute of Arts. Growing up in the 60s and 70s, Donald was exposed to many forms of Black creative expression. Mentors like photographer Hugh Granum and Detroit artist and gallery owner Walter Morgan encouraged his creative pursuits. Donald is from the Jefferson Chalmers neighborhood on Detroit's east side, where his 4 sisters, parents, and grandparents lived.
There was always plenty to do. We lived a very charmed, fun existence living by the river. I'm from the generation be home when the streetlights come on. And we literally, that's what we did. We would run the street, play by the river. And then there was always somebody in the community doing something, building, creating. That was a great influence.
What were some of the earliest pictures or paintings or sculptures you can think of as a young man?
I did a lot of paintings of my grandmother. I did this one piece called Eloise Waiting. That was her name. I did paintings of her. I did drawings of my sisters. And I was always told, draw your feet and your hands. I would do that. A lot of the subject matter was around nature because of the water, paintings of landscapes, and animals. I always had a snake somewhere. We would catch snakes in the spring, and they would get loose. We would get calls to come get the snake and put it back in the box. Oh. And my father was, he said, you can keep them for a while, and then they could visit with them. You have to release them back out. So
I love that your dad let you keep them for a little bit.
Yeah. And all those things show up in my work.
Yes.
Yeah.
And speaking of your father, because he passed when you were a young man,
mm-hmm.
You were at CCS still. Could you talk about that time? Did you ever stop creating or take a pause for a moment?
I started doing work. At one point in time, I was the only one not working in the house, and it felt so weird. Everybody pulled together and was working, and I was not. I was going to school at the time, and just not contributing anything. And it was I remember that time being very dark. It felt very dark for a long time. Yeah. So it was one of struggle, but my mother, to her credit, she pulled us all together, held us all together.
After leaving CCS to help at home, he worked various jobs, ultimately finding himself working full-time as an artist again in Detroit. He would go on to have a solo studio and living space in Greektown above Nicky's for nearly 30 years before moving into his current space on West Grand Boulevard, down the street from Motown Museum and just steps away from Irwin House Gallery.
Hi, this is Omomisha McGlown, and I am the director here at Irwin House Gallery in Detroit.
Omomisha has known Donald since the 80s, where they overlapped as classmates at CCS. She speaks to how Donald sees everyday objects as potential works of art.
What's really unique about Donald's work is his individual perspective on the world. And that's not something you can teach. And I'll give you an example. Donald and I were sitting at a table, and I used to have this, I like tea, so I always have a teapot going. And I might go down there and take the teapot with me. So down there, the teapot's on the table. He looks at the teapot and says, "Do you see a bird?" I say, "No, you're crazy. I see a teapot." And then, then he goes on to describe the different, parts of the teapot, that this is the beak, this is the tail, these are and I'm like, wow. Like, you really look at things differently, and this explains how you're able to arrive at the work. Like when I see Donald working and I see how many different components he's using, he can look at that pile and he already has a vision of what it's going to become. And I don't know how you do that. So it's fascinating. It's really, really all about his eye.
Talk about being neighbors with Donald Calloway. What's it like?
He's added so much more vibrancy and energy and creativity to our block. And it is amazing being neighbors with Donald Calloway.
Such a cool space.
I got on the stairway. I got my big saw and stuff. I don't want you guys to trip over that.
Describe where we are. What's this space? This is your work.
This is a live workspace. Mm-hmm. People walk in here, and your response was like, "What's just cool? Wow, what is this?" They think it's a museum. They say I live in a museum or a gallery because it's not a traditional living room, sofa, love seats, chairs. They want that. Don't need it. So I work primarily upstairs. I have a space I work upstairs. I work outside a lot during the winter. The summer, and then I work in the basement. When I have to do cutting and things of that nature in the winter. But I primarily work outside. Yeah. I take advantage. And then in the winter, I customarily paint a lot. Yeah. Yeah. So like these pieces right here were some of these pieces. And they'll be painted.
I was going to say these look like they're on their way to being painted.
Yeah. They're very much in their raw state still.
What's your, I guess, love or passion or connection with using different materials in the way that you do?
Some of it came out of necessity. Like when I was doing a paper mache, I didn't have access to a kiln. I didn't want to pay those high prices, all this stuff. So that's when I started doing them alternative material, sculptural things with the paper and that. And I find it satisfying. So, yeah, and then I did construction. I always like things being built from raw things. And then the added feature was finding the objects like the furniture and things that have history and have worn. And like, who sat in that chair? What's this? So they tell a story, and I bring that into the work.
Yeah. There's nothing typical about Donald's house. His Technicolor work is on every wall. Every room pulls you into his imagination. You can see wood carvings of eggs and bacon in the dining room. And instead of a couch and table in the living room, you'll see whimsical depictions of humans and animals. And in his kitchen, you'll see abstract forms made of scrapped kitchen utensils. Strolling through his living workspace, we found ourselves in one of his upstairs rooms, surrounded by the color blue. One of Donald's most prominent art series is Blue Babies, depicting young children in different shades of the color, capturing the true essence of the kids of Jefferson Chalmers.
The Blue Babies are based on children that grew up in Jefferson Chalmers area where I grew up. Big fishing community. And we would fish all the time. And then these kids will all come. Some are very little. Some of them in diapers even. It was a different time. Like, who are watching these children? And they're just running amok. And you would see them looking for string, and they would find string and find a hook. And then they would ask you for bait. Oh, do you have a sinker? They were always begging for something. Got a little piece of bait. They would drop a line and catch some fish. Like, bluegill and like a lot. And then they would ask, "Will you watch our fish? We want to go play," and they would go play on those dreadful, god-awful monkey bars that everybody would hurt themselves on, and those slides that when you slide down, you have burns. Mm-hmm. Yeah, during that time, they would play on those. Come back, get their fish, and go about their business. But then you would see them on a regular basis, and the kids would talk, and you would hear them talk. I'm so glad we caught fish. We hadn't caught fish. We had nothing to eat. We had nothing in my house.
Wow.
They were so glad they caught fish. So these kids were like in survival mode.
Yeah.
But they're still like kids playing and happy and stuff. So they're blue because life circumstances, blue because of the water. They're the blue babies. Yeah.
I think about the through lines as well. Like, so what would you say would be a consistent through line or a consistent theme that you've always gone back to or something that you've always relied on?
A constant theme would be about matters of heart, love. A constant theme would be about family. I would say environment, hope, I would like that to be conveyed in the work. I use a lot of color, layers of color, a lot of underpainting of color. So when you look at it, it's not just blue, but there's reds and there's purples, and people look at that and they're like, okay, and you feel something. I want you to feel something, and I want that feeling to be something positive. Every now and then I may do a piece that's not so happy, and that happens, but primarily hope, yeah.
Donald stayed in Detroit for one main reason. He found work. After a residency at the Wright, he says the city continued to create opportunities for his career.
Kevin Davidson, Director of Design and Fabrication Services for the Charles Wright Museum of African American History.
Kevin has known Donald since the mid-90s, commissioning his work for the museum. They worked together to create body casts of Detroiters that are included in the And Still We Rise exhibition. It covers African American history from the North Atlantic slave trade to the civil rights movements in the 60s. Kevin says Donald is a pillar in Detroit's art community. Talk a little bit about Donald. When did you two first meet?
Yeah, right around 96. And it was just before we moved to our current facility. He was an artist in residence at our museum that year. He has remained dedicated to his craft, and so a lot of artists are sort of in and out, but, you're going to find Donald participating in exhibitions throughout the Detroit area and probably other parts of the country. He's going to be at these art fairs, and, you're going to see his incredible booth set up there at the art fair, featuring his work. The booth itself is a work of art. And, his obviously, his work has progressed over the years, and, he has become a master now at creating this extraordinary work that he has continued. And, he has a significant reputation here in Detroit as one of the premier artists as a result of all that hard work and dedication.
Having such a deep legacy in Detroit through the arts and having made a career out of it, I was curious to know what life looks like now. Donald has two sons, one at Cass Technical High School and another at CCS. He's in his proud papa era and uses them often for his inspiration. When he's not parenting, he's creating. Back at his living gallery, as he prepares for an upcoming show, he offers advice for the next generation of Detroit artists. And my last question is about the future artists themselves. What would you tell them about just working as an artist?
First, I would say every artist, no matter what stage they are or what they're doing, every artist is great in their own right. Never forget that. I tell my son that. He's in school right now. Never forget that. And what was the original question?
The young people in the city of Detroit, the advice for the young artists.
The advice for them. Continue to do your work. There's always an audience that, and you have to work. You say you're a visual artist, then show me. You can't, and there's a difference between a Sunday painter and an artist. The Sunday painter is painting on Sunday, which is great. But if you're going to be an artist, you have to produce and have a consistent body of work and continue to work. And I mean, I think it's a privilege to be an artist. I mean, I wake up, I build things around me that I like. I enjoy my time is my time. I also was told many years ago, freedom doesn't come without responsibility. So those things like making your bed every day, brushing your teeth, taking a shower, paying your bills, being responsible so that you can have, the things you need and want and enjoy your life.
You can keep up with Donald Calloway by searching his name on Instagram and Facebook. Container on the Metro is brought to you by WDET in collaboration with the Love Building and Gilbert Family Foundation. The series is produced by Connor Anderson, Jose Yanes, and me, Tia Graham. The original music's done by Sam Bobian, audio editing by Connor Anderson, and our executive producer is David Lyons. To hear new episodes every Monday, subscribe to the Metro's podcast feed on all podcast platforms. Learn more at WDET.org/container.